Well, it's night and day versus a decade ago for banks, for U.S. banks. In that decade, we'd sum it up as capital. At a decade ago, banks had the weakest balance sheet in a generation. Today, U.S. banks have the strongest balance sheet in a generation. In terms of controls and oversight, it was absent a decade ago. Today, it's very strong. In terms of cost control, that's the driver for today's earnings growth, whereas a decade ago it was all about grow, grow, grow. And compensation, far from perfect, but the largest banks are now incented on returns more than growth. So that encourages more sustainable growth.
It's interesting, and I like your reaction to this. Jamie Dimon, the J.P. Morgan CEO, as all of you know, has sent a memo to his employees to mark the anniversary of the crisis, in which he says that the roots of it, in his mind, go back to 2006. By bad underwriting, government policy that fueled and fostered inappropriate mortgage lending. I'm quoting right from the memo. Unscrupulous brokers and cavalier investors. The banks, though not the worst actors in mortgages, joined the party too. How much blame do you think the banks should get and deserve?
Well, look, there are many chefs in the crisis kitchen, and banks deserve part of the blame. Loan growth before the crisis was twice as fast as GDP. Of the major loan categories, 5 of the fastest growth categories were all real estate. But in addition to the bankers, you had accountants in the SEC who made it easier not to take reserves for problem loans. You had rating agencies. You had consumers themselves. You have some personal responsibility here. As David Tepper said, the regulators allowed the banking industry to have enormous leverage, way too much leverage, and the government, which was subsidizing home ownership and encouraged some excesses. So many chefs in the crisis kitchen.
But don't you think the biggest issue was that they really, because I was at Lehman, I left a note too, they just didn't know the risk they actually had. And that was abetted by, frankly, greed, by Main Street, which never gets highlighted because it's politically incorrect.
Are you suggesting that the banks deserve more blame than maybe Mr. Dimon is giving in the memo to his employees?
No, I actually think the government and Main Street America deserves more blame. Nobody said you have to have flat panel TV in every room. Nobody said you got to speculate on investment income from homes. Nobody said you got to leverage to the hilt and take out a second mortgage on your house so you can get a new SUV. So at some point, I don't think Main Street took enough of the blame. I think the regulators also allowing no-doc loans, no-doc mortgages is absurd.